this I try to show in this book, is very closely connected to Marxism. People simply don't realize to what extent many liberal philosophers of today, philosophers of post-nationalism, multiculturalism, to what extent they are, or themselves continue, were Marxists and became philosophers of multiculturalism, or without even understanding it, continue the ideas of the Marxists. So it's important to remember. But what is the essence of this ideology? After the Second World War, it was decided that we went through such an awful history of two world wars. Europe went through centuries of religious wars and then short nationalist wars. Millions of people were killed. We have to stop it. And how we can stop it? We have to understand that religion and nationalism is evil. We have to build supernation united by one law, law of human rights, and that's how we are building new, great, courageous world. And the first document which was passed by the United Nations, and then it was not unanimous, it was a long struggle, right about it a little bit, but it was passed, the Declaration of Human Rights, with the understanding that now that will be the law of the world. As to identities, they are very problematic. We don't need them. Well, some weak people need them, maybe. Some peoples of the third world need them to compensate themselves for the sins of colonialism, which we sing. But we are developed modern nations, we don't need it. We can be above this. Skipping all the other things which you can read in my book, let's go straight to today and see what this ideology brought to Europe. Because Europe was the center of this ideology, of the implementation of this ideology. Today, Europe, hundreds of millions of people who belong to the oldest democracies, to very strong countries, countries where people for centuries were fighting for their right to be part of this free democratic world. And these people have, inside these societies, permitted, also as a part of this multiculturalism, permitted to live inside them tens of millions of Muslims, majority of whom, of course, are not fundamentalists. Among these tens of millions, let's say there are million fundamentalists. Among these million fundamentalists, let's say officially there are like maybe 2,000–3,000 terrorists. Yeah? So after all, for the countries of hundreds of millions of people with the most strong economies and the most deep and passionate democracies, why is such a threat? But you can see how in the last years, one after another, there are books published in England, published in Holland, published in France, which are crying, shouting, Gewalt, look what's happening. We are absolutely defenseless. We cannot defend our freedom. The terrorists are in the middle of London, are preaching in the mosques, and we are afraid to stop them. We are financing education of hatred inside Europe. Why it's happening? I'm not going to retell all those books. They speak for themselves. But this is why it's happening. It's happening because inside Europe we have two societies. One society is devoted to the idea of freedom and democracy, but which has no identity. It did big efforts to prove to itself that identity is not important. Not only it's not important, that it's kind of prejudice. That's what makes us racist. That's what makes us sinning nations. We have to get rid of it. So on one hand, we have post-national world which believes in democracy. On the other hand, we have much smaller, much weaker group of people who have no obligation to democracy, because as a part of this multicultural policy, they never were demanded, but they joined Europe to be loyal to the ideas of democracy, but who have very strong identity. And you find out that when you have this separation, group of people with strong identity without any obligations and interest in democracy, and on the other hand, big and strong world of democracy, but without any identity, this world is powerless. As one journalist, the Danish journalist from a quote said, we learned all the time how to enjoy freedom. We didn't learn that we have to fight for freedom. And then Europe becomes hopeless. Well, if you go to America, if you go to campuses, you'll find this problem played big. And I was in 40 American campuses in the last years, and they had debates with many and many people who were clearly representing the dictatorships of the Middle East on one hand, and their allies who were passionately representing liberal, democratic, free world, who believed that that is their obligation to overcome the prejudices of our identity and to support these representatives of dictatorial regimes of the Middle East. So, but campuses really look, your campus exactly like Europe. If you don't have enough money to go to buy a ticket to Europe, you can simply go to campus and to see intellectual, to see this atmosphere. But the good news is that in general, America as a society, from this point, is much more healthy than this. Because in America, so there is a connection between identity and freedom is much deeper. It's nature. I'm quoting here one who later became the chief of staff of Senator Jackson, but then when he was a young assistant of Senator Jackson, Jewish boy, came on Hanukkah to work on Capitol Hill, and when Senator Jackson said, "Why did you come? Isn't it your Jewish holiday?" He said, "Oh, Senator, the work for you and for my nation is much more important for me than all these national holidays." And then Senator Jackson told him, "My boy, if you want to be a good American, you should better be a good Jew." And that's when this guy started thinking about this meaning of what it means to be a good American. In fact, all this history of the Soviet-Jewish struggle in America proves how natural is this connection between identity and freedom there. But I try to show also in the book that this difference between Europe and America goes back to American and French Revolution. Because French Revolution, well, these two revolutions are believed to be the base of modern democracy. But French Revolution was all the struggle of the world which wants to be free and equal and happy against identity, against religion, against old order, against old loyalties. American Revolution, it was all about protecting religion, protecting your traditional order, protecting your communities which escaped Europe and which want to live the way how their fathers lived. So in America, if you, well, I try to bring some of the quotes of your founding fathers, but they were speaking all the time about this mutual connection of the rational of freedom and spirit of faith, how it all goes together. And that's something what you still have until this day. That's why integration of Muslims in American society is by far better, if you look at the statistics, by far better than in Europe. I take on the one episode to analyze it, the episode of Veil, how in Europe there is one after another countries are passing the laws in order to prohibit to Muslim girls to go with veil to school. And how in America, when there was an attempt in one school to do the same, the Supreme Court took the side of girls and not the side of the school. Why? Because Europe, which feels itself helpless in fighting for democracy accepted by this group of people, decides that the best thing is to assimilate them. Because that's what Europe was doing all the time. That in order to be more free, you have to be assimilated. So how to assimilate them? We will not permit them to demonstrate their belonging to Muslim faith in public space, in public schools. And what I'm saying that, of course, when your traditions or customs contradict to the ideas of democracy, the society has to fight against it. Honored killings is something that you can fight with all your might. But you can check and see that